Opening hook and dawn awakening. You wake before the sun, though you don't think of it that way. There's no clock, no alarm, no sudden jolt from sleep to waking. Instead, consciousness seeps back into your body gradually, the way water soaks into dry earth. The first thing you notice is the cold. It presses against your face, sharp and clean, carrying the smell of stone and distant water. Your eyes are still closed, but you're aware of warmth along your left side. The steady presence of another body curved near yours, breathing slowly. On your right, a child is tucked against you, small and warm, their hair tickling your neck. You don't want to move yet. The sleeping area is lined with dried grasses that you and the others gathered weeks ago. And though they've compressed and thinned where bodies have pressed them flat, they still provide some barrier between you and the cold earth below. Above, you can smell smoke, old and faint, from the fire that burned most of the night. Someone kept it going. You're not sure who. Perhaps the young man who volunteered during yesterday's twilight conversation, or perhaps the older woman who never seems to need much sleep and often tends the flames during the dark hours. Your own breath makes small clouds in the air when you finally open your eyes. The shelter around you is barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness, but you know its contours intimately. The rock overhang that forms a natural ceiling, the way the morning light will soon angle in from the east, the arrangement of stones that help block the wind from the north. This place has been home to your people for 3 seasons now, and it's been a good home. Protected, near water, close to the stands of oak where you gathered so many acorns in autumn dot around you. Others are beginning to stir. You hear the rustle of movement, someone coughing softly, the whisper of bare feet on stone. No one speaks yet. The morning requires quiet, a gentle transition from the vulnerability of sleep to the demands of the day. You know these people as well as you know the landscape around this shelter. The older woman rising now, her movements stiff in the cold, her face weathered and wise. The young mother with her infant, who barely slept, whose eyes show exhaustion. The group of adolescents huddled together for warmth, starting to wake, starting to remember they're hungry. You are hungry too. You're almost always a little bit hungry, not starving. Your people are good at finding food, skilled and knowledgeable, but there's rarely excess. Your body is lean and strong, marked by the work of living, by the scratches from brambles, the calluses on your hands, the way your feet have shaped themselves to the ground you walk on. You've lived maybe 28 or 30 winters, though you wouldn't count it that way. You think of time differently, in seasons and moons, in the rhythm of animal migrations and plant cycles, in the growing up of children and the passing of elders. The child beside you, your daughter, begins to wake. She's perhaps 5 years old, old enough to be useful, young enough to still need you desperately. She makes a small sound, not quite a word, and you touch her head gently, smoothing her hair. She's learning so much, so quickly. Yesterday, she correctly identified 3 different edible roots just by their leaves, and your heart had swelled with pride and relief. She'll survive. She'll carry forward what you teach her. Now comes the moment you've been postponing. You have to leave the relative warmth of the sleeping area and face the cold morning air fully. You shift carefully, trying not to wake others who are still sleeping, and rise to a crouch beneath the low ceiling. Your body aches in the familiar ways, your knees, your lower back, the old injury in your left ankle that never quite healed right after that fall 2 winters ago. But you're healthy, you're strong. You move to the entrance of the shelter, where the air is even colder, but where you can finally stand fully upright. The world before you is still mostly dark, but the quality of darkness is changing. The stars are fading. The sky to the east holds a promise of light, a subtle shift from black to deep blue. The landscape spreads before you in familiar shadows, the line of trees down by the water, the open meadow where you know the deer sometimes graze at dawn, the rocky outcrop where you found good flint for tools. Everything is quiet except for the sound of water running somewhere nearby, constant and reassuring, and the awakening calls of birds beginning their own morning routines. You can see the fire pit from here, just outside the shelter's entrance, and yes, there are still embers glowing faintly in the ash. Someone did keep it alive through the night. Fire is life. Fire is safety. Fire is the difference between eating or starving when you have meat, between freezing or surviving when the cold winds come. You've known fire your entire life, learned its care from your mother and grandmother, and you'll teach your daughter just as carefully. Fire must never be taken for granted, even though you know how to create it, how to coax flame from friction or strike it from stone. It's hard work, uncertain work, and it's so much easier to keep fire alive than to birth it anew. Other people are emerging now from the shelter, moving quietly, each person falling into the familiar rhythm of morning. There's no discussion needed. Everyone knows what must be done. The older woman is already moving toward the fire pit, her hands reaching for small sticks from the pile kept dry beneath an overhang. The young father is stretching, preparing to check the nearby area for any signs of danger during the night, any tracks or disturbances that should concern you. The adolescents are looking around, already thinking about food, about what today might bring. You think about the day ahead, but not in the way someone from another time might plan their hours. You don't think, I'll do this at 9 and that at noon. Instead, you feel the day's shape, its possibilities and necessities. Water must be fetched. The fire must be maintained. Food must be found. There are hides that need scraping, a basket half woven, and someone mentioned yesterday that they'd seen a tree downstream that had good bark for cordage. The child must be watched, taught, fed. The group must stay together, stay safe, stay fed, but first, the fire. You move toward the pit, joining the older woman who's already bent over the embers, blowing gently, adding the smallest twigs to the growing warmth. You can see the glow strengthening, a tiny orange light in the gray dawn, and you feel something in your chest relax. Another day begins. Another day of survival, of living, of being human in this vast and beautiful and dangerous world. Your ancestors did this. Your children will do this. And right now, in this moment between darkness and light, you do this. You breathe life into fire, and the day begins. Morning routines and fire tending. The fire responds to your breath and the older woman's practiced hands, and within minutes, flames are rising from the embers, small but steady, curling around the dry twigs with that familiar sound, that soft crackling that means warmth and safety. You feel the heat beginning to reach your face and hands, and it's a profound relief. The cold had settled deep into your bones during the night, and now, slowly, you're coming back to life. The older woman, whose name in your language means something like knows the stones, sits back on her heels and nods, satisfied. She's been tending fires for perhaps 50 winters, an extraordinary age. And there's almost nothing about fire she doesn't understand. You add slightly larger sticks now, building the fire carefully, never rushing, never smothering it. Fire is greedy, but also fragile. Too much fuel too soon, and it's up. Too little, and it dies. You've learned this balance through years of watching and doing, through the times you failed and the times you succeeded. Your daughter appears at your elbow, crouching beside you, watching intently. She's still wrapped in the hide she slept under, clutching it around her shoulders, her eyes reflecting the flames. You don't speak, but you shift slightly to make sure she can see clearly how you're placing the sticks, the angle, the spacing, the way you're building a structure that allows air to flow. Others are gathering near the fire now, drawn by its light and warmth. The young mother holds her infant close to the flames, letting the heat reach the baby's skin. The infant is perhaps 3 months old, and every day the baby survives feels like a small miracle. So many don't make it through their first year. The young father returns from his morning check of the surrounding area and reports nothing concerning. No large predator tracks, no signs of other human groups nearby. This is good. Other groups aren't necessarily hostile, but they might be, and resources are precious. Everyone relaxes slightly at his news. Now comes the first meal, though meal is perhaps too generous a word. There are leftovers from yesterday's foraging, some nuts that were gathered 2 days ago and stored in a hide bag, and someone produces a piece of dried meat, tough and dark. That gets passed around and torn into small portions. You chew slowly, making it last, and give a piece to your daughter. The meat is chewy, requires work, but it's protein and fat. There's also water to fetch, and you take one of the skin bags, worn soft from use, and head down the path to the stream. The walk to water is short, maybe 200 paces down a gentle slope through trees that are just beginning to show their shapes in the growing light. Dawn is fully breaking now, the sky turning from gray to pale blue, and the world is waking up around you. Birds are calling everywhere, their songs complex and varied, and you recognize many of them. That one is the thrush that nests near the big oak. That's the crow who's been following your group for days, hoping for scraps. You've named him in your mind, though you don't share this with others. He's clever, that crow, and you respect cleverness. The stream is running clear and cold over smooth stones, and you crouch beside it, feeling the morning breeze on your face. This moment, alone, is rare and precious. You drink first, cupping your hand, feeling the cold water sliding down your throat. Then you fill the bag, careful not to let it drag in the mud at the stream's edge, and you pause before standing. The light is golden now, slanting through the trees, and for just this moment, you're not thinking about hunger or danger or all the work ahead. You're just here, crouching by water, listening to it run, watching the way light catches in the ripples. When you return to the fire, the group is more animated now. People are talking, making plans for the day. The language you speak is rich and complex, full of specific words for specific things, words for different types of stone, different weather conditions, different animal behaviors, different plants. You discuss where to forage today. Someone suggests the berry thicket to the south, but another person points out that those berries won't be ripe for another moon at least. Someone else mentions the meadow where good roots grow, and there's general agreement. That meadow has been generous before, but before anyone can leave, there's work to be done at the camp. The fire needs a good supply of wood collected and kept dry. This is essential work, never-ending work, and everyone participates. The adolescents are sent to gather fallen branches from the forest floor, and they leave in a small group, talking and laughing together, their voices fading into the trees. You notice how they move together, how they're learning cooperation and companionship, and you remember being that age. Remember the feeling of endless energy and possibility. You turn your attention to other morning tasks. The sleeping area needs tidying. The grasses need to be shaken out and rearranged, and someone needs to check the few possessions the group carries. These aren't many. Everything you own must be carried when you move, but they're precious. The tools, especially. You have a scraper made from flint that your mother made, and you've kept it sharp and useful for years. There are hide bags for carrying digging sticks for roots, several spears with carefully hafted points, a few precious shells that came from the distant coast, traded from group to group until they reached your hands. The older woman is working on a hide that was cleaned yesterday, scraping it with patient strokes, removing every bit of fat and membrane, preparing it to be soft and usable. This work takes days, sometimes weeks, and it's skilled labor. A poorly prepared hide is stiff, useless, prone to rot. A well-prepared hide can last for years, can mean the difference between freezing and surviving winter. You watch her hands move, steady despite her age, and you're struck by how much knowledge she carries. How much would be lost if she were to die? She's taught you much, but there's still so much you don't know. Your daughter is playing near the fire with 2 other children, and you watch them carefully while you work. They're building something with sticks and stones, some kind of structure. Their imaginations making it into a shelter for themselves, or perhaps a trap for imaginary animals. Children's play is never just play. It's learning, constantly learning, observing adults and imitating, practicing skills they'll need to survive. Your daughter is already good at sitting still and quiet when adults need her to be quiet. Already learning to read the moods and needs of the group. The sun is fully up now, warm on your skin, and you feel your body relaxing into the day. The desperate cold of night and dawn is fading. The fire burns steadily, orange and yellow flames dancing, and there's smoke rising into the clear morning air. Someone has placed stones near the fire to warm them, and later, someone else will use those heated stones to help process food, or maybe to provide warmth in the sleeping area tonight. Every resource is used carefully, thoughtfully, with nothing wasted, because waste could mean death. You think about the day ahead, about the foraging trip that will need to happen, about the many small tasks that fill the hours between dawn and dusk. But right now, in this moment, with the fire warm and your people safe and the sun rising into a cloudless sky, you feel something that might be contentment. It's not happiness exactly. Life is too hard for constant happiness, too uncertain, but it's satisfaction. You're alive. Your child is alive. Your people are together. The fire burns. For now, that's enough. gathering and foraging expeditions. By mid-morning, a small group of you sets out from the camp to forage. There are 6 of you, mostly women and older children, including you and your daughter, the young mother with her infant secured in a hide sling against her chest, one of the adolescent girls who's eager to learn, and the older woman who knows the plants better than anyone. One young man comes too, partly for protection, partly because he's also skilled at spotting good foraging areas, his eyes sharp and his memory for landscape exceptional. Everyone carries bags made from hide or woven plant fibers, and you each have a digging stick, a simple tool that's nonetheless essential. A length of hardwood worn smooth by use and sharpened to a sturdy point. You don't walk quickly. Foraging isn't about speed, it's about attention, about seeing what others might miss, about reading the landscape like a language you've been learning your entire life. The path you take isn't random. The older woman leads, but everyone contributes observations, pointing out plants, discussing what's ready and what's not, sharing knowledge that's been accumulated over generations. Your people have lived in this region for many lifetimes, and the knowledge of what grows where and when is vast and intricate. The first stop is a patch of ground near a cluster of trees, where you know certain roots grow. These roots are starchy and filling, not delicious but substantial, and they store well if you dig them properly. You crouch down and begin working with your digging stick, loosening the earth, feeling for the roots with your fingers. The soil is cool and slightly damp, and it smells rich and alive. Your daughter crouches beside you, watching intently, and when you unearth a good root, thick and pale, you let her examine it before placing it in your bag. She asks if she can dig too, and you hand her a smaller stick and show her where to work. Her technique is clumsy, and she loses patience quickly, but she's trying, and that's what matters. Around you, the others are working steadily, spread out across the area, but always within sight of each other, never out of sight. There are dangers, always dangers, and staying together means staying safe. The adolescent girl has found a particularly productive spot and calls out softly, her voice pleased. The young mother is digging one-handed, her other arm supporting the infant, and you move to help her, taking turns digging while she rests. There's no discussion of fairness or whose turn it is. The work simply needs to be done, and everyone contributes what they can. After perhaps an hour at this location, you've collected a good amount of roots, enough that your bags are getting heavy, and the group decides to move on. The older woman wants to check a grove she remembers from last year, a place where certain berries grow, though as others mentioned this morning, it might still be too early in the season. You follow her through the landscape, crossing a meadow where the grass is knee-high and dotted with flowers, their colors vivid in the morning sunlight. Your daughter runs ahead slightly, then stops to examine something, a flower or an interesting stone, and you call her back gently. Stay close. Always stay close. The grove is farther than you remembered. Maybe half a day's walk from camp, and some of the group begins to worry slightly about the distance. You're carrying the roots you've already dug, and they're heavy. And there's always the calculation of whether it's worth going farther for potential food versus the energy expended getting there and back. But the older woman is confident, and her confidence is earned through decades of being right, so you continue. She tells stories as you walk, stories about this landscape, about times she's foraged here before, about a particularly hard winter 20 years ago, when these groves saved her people from starvation. When you finally reach the berry thicket, it's immediately clear that it was worth the walk. The bushes are loaded, and while the berries aren't quite at peak ripeness, they're close enough, dark, red, and plump, and you can eat them as well as collect them. Everyone's mood lifts. Berries are more than sustenance, they're sweetness, they're pleasure, and it's been weeks since you've had any. Your daughter is delighted, eating as many as she puts in the bag, her lips staining dark red, and you don't scold her. Let her have this joy. Let her remember that life isn't only hardship, that sometimes there's sweetness. You work steadily, picking berries with both hands, the rhythm meditative and satisfying. The sun is warm on your back, and there are bees working the flowers nearby. They're buzzing constant and strangely peaceful. You think about how much knowledge is required to do what you're doing. You know which berries are safe and which are poisonous. You know when they ripen and where they grow. You know how to process roots and nuts, how to leach the bitterness from acorns, how to dry meat so it doesn't spoil, how to find water even in dry seasons. You know animal behavior, tracking the movements of herds and the habits of predators. You know how to make tools, prepare hides, create cordage from plant fibers, weave baskets, maintain fire. The amount of information you carry in your mind is staggering, though you'd never think of it that way. It's just life, just what you need to know to survive, what everyone needs to know. And you're teaching it all to your daughter, every day, through words and through example, through letting her watch and try and sometimes fail and try again. She's learning which plants to avoid by their leaves, which stones make good tools, how to read the sky for weather changes, how to move quietly through the forest, how to share with others, how to contribute to the group's survival. The young mother is sitting now, nursing her infant in the shade of a large bush, and you bring her some berries and a water bag. She thanks you with her eyes, too tired to speak much, and you squeeze her shoulder gently. She's exhausted, that's clear, the demands of a newborn immense, but the baby is healthy and nursing well, and that's a victory. The young man who came with you is keeping watch, standing at the edge of the thicket, his eyes scanning the landscape, his spear within easy reach. He's taking his responsibility seriously, and you respect that. Everyone has a role. Everyone matters. By early afternoon, your bags are full, heavy with roots and berries, and there's a general sense of satisfaction. Today has been a good day for foraging. Not every day is this successful. Sometimes you walk for hours and find little. Sometimes the weather turns bad, or someone spots signs of predators, and you have to return to camp quickly. But today, the weather has held, the foraging has been good, and no one has been injured. You begin the walk back to camp, moving more slowly now under the weight of what you're carrying. The walk back gives you time to think, to let your mind wander. You notice things you didn't notice on the way out. A fallen tree that might have good mushrooms in a few days. A game trail that suggests deer are moving through this area. A distinctive rock formation that you file away in your mental map of the territory. The landscape is never static. It changes with seasons, with weather, with the movements of animals and the growth of plants. You're constantly updating your knowledge, constantly learning, and this learning never stops. not even for the older woman who's seen perhaps 50 winters. Your daughter is tired now, and you carry her part of the way, her weight solid and warm against your hip. She's clutching a handful of berries, her most precious treasure, and she's fighting sleep, her eyes drooping closed, then fluttering open, determined not to miss anything. You kiss the top of her head, and she leans into you, trusting completely. This trust is humbling. You know how fragile life is, how quickly things can change. And yet you'll do everything in your power to keep her safe, to teach her what she needs to know, to give her the best chance at survival. When camp finally comes into view, you feel relief wash over you. The fire is still burning, tended by those who stayed behind, and there are people moving around, busy with their own tasks. You've been gone most of the day, and you're tired and hungry, and your shoulders ache from carrying the heavy bags, but you're also proud. You've contributed. You've brought back food. Tonight, people will eat because of the work you did today, and that matters. That's everything. Tool making and craft work. After the foraging group returns, and the food has been distributed and admired, the afternoon settles into a different rhythm. The urgency of the morning's tasks has eased, at least temporarily, and now there's time for the work that's less immediately pressing, but equally essential. You sit down near the fire with a piece of flint you've been carrying for several days, waiting for time to work it, and you begin the careful process of making a new scraper. Your old one is worn down, its edge losing effectiveness, and you need a replacement. The flint is a good piece, dark gray and glassy, with no obvious flaws or cracks that might cause it to shatter unpredictably. You found it 3 days ago, near a riverbank, where erosion had exposed a layer of flint-bearing rock. And you'd spent time selecting just the right piece, running your fingers over it, testing its weight, envisioning what you might create from it. Flint is precious. Good flint is the difference between effective tools and poor ones, between successful work and frustration. Your people know where flint can be found in this territory, the specific outcrops and riverbeds where the stone appears, and this knowledge is shared carefully, passed down, discussed around evening fires. You hold the flint core in your left hand and take up a hammerstone in your right. The hammerstone is round and hard, a river cobble you've used for years, and it fits your hand perfectly, the weight familiar, the balance known to your muscles and bones. You study the flint, turning it slowly, looking for the right place to strike, the right angle, and then you bring the hammerstone down in a quick, controlled motion. A flake detaches with a sharp crack, falling to the ground at your feet. You examine the remaining core, assess the new shape, and strike again. This work requires total concentration. You have to see the shape hidden inside the stone, have to understand how force will travel through the flint, where it will fracture, and how. Strike too hard, and the piece shatters uselessly. Strike too soft, and nothing happens. Strike at the wrong angle, and the flake comes off wrong, unusable. You learned this skill over years, watching your mother and others, attempting your first pieces as a child and failing, producing countless rough and inadequate tools before finally beginning to understand the stone, to feel how it wanted to break. Around you, others are engaged in their own tasks. The older woman is working on a basket, weaving flexible plant fibers with patient precision, her hands moving in patterns she's repeated thousands of times. The basket is taking shape slowly, row by row, and when it's finished, it will hold food or small tools or whatever needs carrying. The young father is working on a spear, replacing a point that broke during a recent hunt, carefully hafting a new flint point to the wooden shaft with sinew and plant resin. The adolescent girl who came foraging with you is learning to prepare cordage, rolling plant fibers between her palm and her thigh, creating strong string that can be used for countless purposes. Your daughter sits beside you, watching your hands intently. She asks if she can try, and you hand her a piece of flint. Not good quality, but adequate for learning, and a small hammerstone. You guide her hands, show her where to hold, how to strike, but you know she won't succeed, not yet. She's too young, her coordination not developed enough, her understanding of the stone not sophisticated enough. But she needs to start learning now. She needs to watch and attempt and fail and try again. Because by the time she's your age, she needs to be skilled enough to make her own tools, to rely on her own knowledge. You won't always be here to make tools for her. She strikes the flint and nothing happens. She strikes again, harder, and a tiny flake detaches, though not the way she intended. She looks at you, frustrated, and you nod encouragingly. Keep trying. Everyone starts like this. Even the older woman, even the most skilled toolmakers in the region. They all began with clumsy attempts and broken stones. Skill comes through time and practice, through patient repetition. Through failing and learning from failure, you return to your own work. And after perhaps an hour, you've created a rough shape that you're satisfied with. Now comes the more delicate work, the pressure flaking that will refine the edge and create the sharp, durable working surface you need. You set aside the hammerstone and take up a piece of antler, its tip worn to a specific shape through use. You press the antler against the edge of the stone, applying force carefully, precisely, and a small flake detaches. Press again, another flake. Slowly, the edge becomes sharper, more refined, and you can feel in your hands when it's right, when the angle is correct, when the tool is ready. The work is meditative. Your mind quiets, focused entirely on the stone, on the feel of it, the sound it makes, the way light catches on the freshly exposed surface. Around you, the camp continues, its afternoon rhythms. Children are playing, their voices rising and falling. Someone is singing softly, a song without words. The fire crackles. Water is being carried from the stream. People are talking, laughing, discussing plans for tomorrow, or remembering events from the past. When you finally finish the scraper, the sun has moved significantly across the sky, and your shoulders are stiff from hunching over your work. You hold up the finished tool, turning it in the light, testing the edge carefully with your thumb. It's good. The edge is sharp and sturdy, the shape comfortable in your hand, and you feel satisfaction settle into your chest. This tool will last you months, maybe longer, if you maintain it well, resharpening it when needed, and it will make countless tasks easier. You'll use it to prepare hides, to work wood, to process plant materials. It's a small thing, this stone tool, but it's essential, and you made it yourself from raw material, from knowledge and skill. You show it to your daughter, and her eyes widen. She wants to hold it, and you let her, carefully, teaching her how to hold it safely, away from the sharp edge. She's impressed. You can see it in her face, and she looks at the rough stone she was working on earlier, comparing. One day, you tell her, one day she'll make tools like this too. She nods seriously, believing you, trusting that the future you're describing will come to pass. The young father has finished hafting his spear point, and he's testing it now, making small throwing motions, checking the balance. The haft is wrapped tightly with sinew, the joint reinforced with pine resin that was heated and applied carefully, and the point is secure. He seems satisfied. A well-made spear can mean the difference between eating and going hungry, between successfully hunting or watching prey escape. Tools aren't luxuries, they're survival. You notice the older woman's basket is nearly complete, and you admire her work. The weaving is tight, and even the pattern complex, and it's beautiful in its functionality. She's been making baskets her entire life, and the skill shows. She smiles at your compliment, her face creasing with pleasure, and she tells you she'll teach you the more complicated patterns when you have time. There's always more to learn, always more skills to acquire, and you're grateful for her willingness to share knowledge. The afternoon light is golden now, slanting across the camp, and you feel the day beginning its slow transition toward evening. Your hands are tired from the precision work, and you have small cuts on your fingers from the sharp stone, but you're content. You've made something useful. You've contributed. You've taught your daughter. The older woman has advanced her basket. The young father has repaired his spear. The adolescent girl has created several lengths of cordage. The work of living continues, task by task, skill by skill. Day by day. You gather the stone flakes from your work and carefully dispose of them away from areas where people walk barefoot. Sharp flakes can cause serious injuries, and everyone is careful about this. You store your new scraper in a hide bag with your other tools, and you feel the weight of them, the accumulation of made things, of human intelligence and creativity applied to the challenge of survival. Your people are often called primitive by those who come after, but there's nothing primitive about the knowledge required to do what you do every day. There's nothing simple about understanding stone and wood and fiber and bone well enough to transform them into exactly what you need. The hunt and protein acquisition, not every day includes a hunt. The reality is that hunting is uncertain, energy-intensive, and often unsuccessful. And your people are pragmatic about this. You've already eaten today the foraged roots and berries, the small amount of dried meat from previous days, and while everyone is still hungry, always a little hungry, you're not desperate. But the men and some of the women have been discussing tracks they've seen, signs that deer are moving through the area, and there's a feeling in the camp that perhaps today might be a good day to try. The young father and two other men, along with one of the older adolescent girls who's proven herself skilled with a spear, begin preparing for a hunt. You watch them make their preparations, and there's a seriousness to it, almost a ritual quality. Spears are checked and rechecked. The points are examined to ensure they're secure and sharp. People eat a little more than they normally would to give themselves energy for what might be hours of walking and waiting. There's discussion about where to go, which area might be most promising based on recent observations. Someone saw deer tracks near the meadow 2 days ago. Someone else spotted a small herd drinking from the stream at dawn yesterday. The older woman contributes her knowledge of deer behavior. where they like to feed at this time of year, the routes they typically take through the territory. The hunting party sets out in the early afternoon, and you and your daughter walk with them for a short distance, as do several others, before turning back to let them continue alone. Hunting requires quiet and patience, and the ability to move quickly when necessary, and a large group would only be a hindrance. You watch them disappear into the tree line, 4 figures moving steadily, confidently, their spears balanced in their hands, and you feel both hope and realism. They might return with meat. They might return with nothing. Both outcomes are familiar. Back at camp, life continues. You work on scraping a hide that's been soaking in water, removing the hair, preparing it for the long process of tanning. Your daughter helps by fetching water when you need it, and by keeping the fire fed with small sticks. The work is physical and somewhat tedious, but you find a rhythm in it, and your mind wanders. You think about the hunters, hoping they're successful, imagining the meat they might bring back, the meals it would provide, the way everyone's mood would lift if they returned with a deer. But you've also been on hunts that found nothing. You've walked for hours, tracking animals that vanished or changed direction or proved too wary to approach. You've watched hunters throw spears that missed their targets by inches. You've experienced the frustration of getting close, so close, only to have some sound or shift in the wind alert the prey and send it bounding away. Hunting is hard. It requires knowledge of animal behavior, excellent tracking skills, extraordinary patience, cooperation among hunters, and ultimately, luck. Even the most skilled hunters fail more often than they succeed. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky. You finish working on the hide and start preparing the evening meal with what you have. The roots from this morning's foraging, some nuts, a little bit of rendered fat saved from days ago. It's not much, but it's food, and everyone will eat something tonight, regardless of whether the hunters return with meat. Your people are good at making the most of what's available, at finding satisfaction in small meals, at not expecting abundance, but appreciating it when it comes. Your daughter asks if you think the hunters will bring back a deer, and you tell her honestly that you don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. She asks what you'll do if they bring meat, and you describe the process, the butchering and distribution, the way the camp will smell when meat is roasting over the fire, the satisfaction of fat and protein after days of mostly plant foods. She listens intently, her imagination painting the picture, and you can see the anticipation building in her face. As dusk begins to approach, you start wondering when the hunters will return. If they haven't made a kill, they'll likely return before dark. If they have, they might be delayed by the work of butchering and carrying. You continue with tasks around the camp, but part of your attention is always on the tree line, listening, watching. Others are doing the same. Everyone wants the hunters to be successful, not just for the food, but for the morale, for the sense that the land is providing, that your people's skills and knowledge are enough. Just as the sun is touching the horizon, you hear a call. It's distant but unmistakable, the specific sound that means success, that means meat. Everyone in camp stops what they're doing, and there's a collective intake of breath, a moment of shared excitement. Then people are moving, gathering water skins, preparing to help with carrying, building up the fire in anticipation of cooking. The adolescents are practically vibrating with excitement. And even the older woman, who's seen hundreds of successful hunts, is smiling. The hunting party emerges from the trees, and they're carrying a deer between them. A young doe, not enormous, but a good size, and everyone rushes forward to help. The animal is still warm, recently killed, and as you approach, you can see it was a clean kill, a spear through the chest, quick and merciful. The hunters are exhausted, but triumphant, their faces flushed with effort and satisfaction. They describe the hunt in bursts of excited language, how they tracked the small herd, how they moved into position, how the young father made the throw that brought the deer down. Now begins the work of butchering, and many hands make it faster. The deer is laid out on clean hides, and people with sharp stone tools begin the careful work of separating meat from bone, of preserving as much as possible. Nothing will be wasted. The hide will be prepared and used. The bones will be cracked for marrow and then used for tools. The sinew will be saved for cordage. Even the hooves and antlers have uses. You work alongside others, your hands slippery with blood, and the smell is intense, animal and raw, but not unpleasant. This is life. This is food. Your daughter watches with wide eyes, and you explain what you're doing as you work, showing her the anatomy of the deer, teaching her the names of different cuts of meat, explaining which parts are best for immediate eating and which should be dried for later. She's too young to participate much in the butchering, but she's old enough to learn by watching, and she pays close attention. One day, she need to know how to do this herself. As full darkness falls, meat is already roasting over the fire, and the smell is extraordinary, rich and savory, making everyone's mouth water. People are laughing, talking, the mood in camp jubilant. There's a sense of celebration, of gratitude, of connection to the land and animals that sustain you. You think about the deer, about its life that ended to preserve yours, and you feel a complex mixture of gratitude and respect, and something like sorrow. Taking a life is never trivial, never something to celebrate thoughtlessly, but it's also necessary, and your people understand this balance. When the first pieces of meat are ready, they're distributed carefully, making sure everyone gets a share, that the hunters who worked hard get enough, that the nursing mother gets extra, that the children are fed, that the elders are honored. You bite into your portion, and the taste is incredible. Fat and protein and salt, everything your body has been craving. You close your eyes, savoring it, and beside you, your daughter is doing the same, her face transported with pleasure. Tonight, everyone will eat well. Tomorrow, you'll continue drying meat to preserve it for leaner days. But right now, in this moment, there's abundance, there's success, there's the satisfaction of skill and knowledge and cooperation resulting in survival. The fire burns bright, illuminating faces, and people are content. The hunt was successful. The day provided. You're alive, and fed, and together, and that's everything. Afternoon social life and childcare. The afternoon after the meat has been distributed and the initial hunger satisfied. The camp settles into a comfortable rhythm that feels different from the focused work of morning and the excitement of the hunt's return. This is the time when people can breathe, when survival pressures ease slightly, when the social life of your people can flourish. Children who were quiet during the morning's tasks are now running and playing, their voices carrying across the camp, and the sound is joyful and reassuring. Where there are playing children, there's safety, there's enough food, there's a future. Your daughter has joined a group of other children near the edge of camp, and you watch them with half your attention while you work on cutting thin strips of meat to hang for drying. The children are playing a game that looks like chaos, but actually has complex rules you only partly understand. They're pretending to hunt, you think, or maybe to be hunted, running and hiding and calling out to each other in high, excited voices. The older children are teaching the younger ones, showing them how to move quietly, how to track, and it's play, but it's also education, always education. Every moment, a chance to learn something that might matter later, near you. The young mother is sitting with her infant, and several other women have gathered around her, including the older woman who's seen everything, and the adolescent girl who's curious about babies and motherhood. They're examining the infant, admiring the tiny fingers and the way the baby's eyes track movement, discussing how much the child has grown in just the past few weeks. The young mother looks tired. She always looks tired these days, but also proud and protective. The baby is thriving, gaining weight, responding to voices, and every day of survival is a victory. The older woman is sharing stories about her own children, most of whom didn't survive to adulthood, a reality that still carries grief even decades later. She speaks matter-of-factly about the ones who died in infancy, the one who survived to age 7 before a fever took him, the daughter who made it to adolescence before a fall while gathering cliffside plants ended her life. But she also speaks of the 2 who survived, who are now adults themselves, with their own children, living with another group several days' journey from here. Her voice carries both sorrow and acceptance, the understanding that this is how life is, that death is as natural as birth, that you love fiercely knowing you might lose everything. You listen while you work, your hands mechanically cutting meat into strips, and you glance at your daughter playing with the other children. She's healthy now, strong and smart and capable, but you know how quickly that could change. A fall, an infection, a moment of inattention near a predator, and she could be gone. You push the thought away, but it never fully leaves. Every parent carries this fear, this knowledge of fragility, and it makes every ordinary day precious. The adolescent girl asks the older woman about childbirth, and the older woman doesn't shy away from honest description. She explains the pain, the danger, the way women help each other through it, the techniques passed down for making it safer. She talks about positioning, about herbs that can help with pain or bleeding, about the importance of keeping the birthing mother warm and supported. The adolescent girl listens intently, storing away information she needs someday if she lives long enough to have children of her own. This knowledge isn't written anywhere. It lives in the minds and memories of women, passed from generation to generation through conversation exactly like this. One of the men is working nearby, and he's been listening to, unself-consciously interested in the conversation. In your group, there's no rigid separation between men's knowledge and women's knowledge. Everyone needs to know as much as possible, about as much as possible, because you never know what situation might arise, who might be present, who might need to help. The young father knows how to identify edible plants almost as well as you do. You know how to track animals and throw a spear, though you're not as skilled as the primary hunters. Survival requires flexibility, requires everyone to be capable of multiple roles. Your daughter runs over to you, breathless and happy, to show you a pretty stone she found. You admire it appropriately, turning it over in your hand, and she asks if she can keep it. Of course she can. Children need to collect things, need to have possessions that are theirs alone, need to feel that sense of ownership and pride. She runs back to the other children, clutching her treasure, and you smile, watching her go. These moments of pure childhood joy are gifts, bright spots in the difficult work of growing up in this harsh and beautiful world. The older woman has moved on from childbirth stories to teaching the adolescent girl about plants, showing her several leaves she collected this morning, quiz style, asking the girl to identify them and explain their uses. The girl gets some right and some wrong, and the older woman corrects gently, reinforcing the information. This plant stops bleeding when pressed on wounds. This one can be eaten, but only after boiling. This one is poisonous and should never be touched. The girl repeats the information, committing it to memory, and you find yourself listening to, even though you already know most of it. You can never know too much. There's always something new to learn, some detail you missed, some application you hadn't considered. The young father approaches the group and sits down, joining the conversation naturally. He's been working on making arrows, a painstaking process that requires precision and patience, and his hands are stained from the plant materials he's been using. He asks the older woman about a tree he saw today, whether its wood would be good for arrow shafts, and she considers the question seriously before answering. Yes, that tree's wood is excellent for arrows, flexible but strong, but it needs to be cut at the right time of year and dried properly. He nods, filing away the information, and mentions he'll collect some next time he's in that area. This is how knowledge spreads in your people, through casual conversation, through questions and answers, through shared experience. There are no books, no schools, no formal education system. There's only people talking to each other, sharing what they know, teaching the next generation, and it works. Your people have survived for countless generations this way, adapting to changes, moving through landscapes, maintaining complex knowledge systems, entirely through oral tradition and practical demonstration. The afternoon light is beautiful now, golden and warm, and the camp feels peaceful despite the constant low-level activity. Someone is singing again, a different song this time, and others join in, creating harmony without conscious effort. Your people love music, love the way voices blend, the way rhythm emerges from multiple sources. Songs serve many purposes. They help pass time during repetitive work. They teach children important information encoded in verses. They create bonds between people. They express emotions too complex for ordinary speech. Your daughter has returned to your side, tired now from playing, and she leans against you, her small, warm weight comforting. You wrap an arm around her and continue your work one-handed, cutting meat strips, and she watches your hands move. She asks you to tell her a story, and you begin one of the traditional tales about the woman who learned to speak with animals, about the time when humans and other creatures could understand each other. It's a story your mother told you, that her mother told her, reaching back through generations to origins you can't imagine. Other people are listening now too, the story drawing their attention, and you feel the responsibility of being the storyteller in this moment. You make your voice dramatic at the right moments, gentle at others, and you watch people's faces as they listen, seeing them smile or nod or react to familiar parts. Stories are how your people make sense of the world, how you explain natural phenomena, how you teach moral lessons, how you maintain cultural continuity across generations. Every story is a gift from the past and a bridge to the future. As the sun continues its descent toward the horizon, you finish the story and your daughter looks satisfied, her eyes heavy with approaching sleep. The meat you've been preparing is nearly done, strips hanging from a wooden frame near the fire where smoke and heat will dry them over the coming days. Around you, people are transitioning toward evening activities, preparing for the final meal of the day, tending children, completing tasks. The social time of afternoon is giving way to the more structured routines of dusk. But the connections forged, the knowledge shared, the stories told, these linger, these matter. These are the invisible structures that hold your people together as surely as shelter and fire and food. Evening rituals and storytelling. As darkness begins to claim the sky, the camp draws inward, physically and emotionally. The fire, which has been maintained all day, becomes the center of everything now. People gather around it, closer than during the day, drawn by light and warmth and the ancient human need for community in the face of darkness. You're sitting with your daughter between your knees, her back resting against your chest, and you can feel her heartbeat, steady and calm, as she watches the flames dance. Around the circle, perhaps 15 or 20 people are settling into their evening places. The familiar arrangement of your group. Your family in the broadest sense. The young mother is nursing her infant in the firelight. The baby's small sounds of contentment audible in the growing quiet. The older woman is working on her basket still, her fingers moving with practiced ease even in the dimmer light. The young father and another man are discussing tomorrow's plans in low voices, debating whether to check snares they set several days ago or to focus on different tasks. The adolescents are sitting together as they prefer, their own small subgroup within the larger whole, talking and laughing softly about things that matter intensely to them and no one else. Someone has prepared a simple evening meal from the remaining roots and some of the freshly cooked meat from today's hunt, and portions are distributed around the circle. Everyone eats slowly, savoring, and there's a comfortable silence broken only by the sounds of eating, the crackling fire, the distant calls of night birds beginning their hunting. This time of day has a sacred quality, though you wouldn't use that word exactly. It's simply that darkness brings a natural pause, a natural boundary between the work of day and the rest of night. And humans have honored this transition since time beyond memory. Your daughter finishes her food and leans back against you more heavily, her body relaxing toward sleep. But she's not ready to sleep yet. She wants to stay with the adults, to be part of the evening gathering, and you let her. Children learn so much by simply being present, by absorbing the patterns of adult interaction, the stories told, the knowledge shared. She's quiet now, listening, watching the fire with half-closed eyes, and you stroke her hair absently, a comfort to both of you. The older woman begins speaking, not loudly but clearly enough to draw attention, and people turn toward her. She's going to tell a story, you can tell from her tone, from the way she's positioning herself, and everyone settles in to listen. The stories the elders tell are different from the simple tales you tell children during the day. These are the deep stories, the ones that carry history and meaning and cultural wisdom, the ones that explain who your people are and where you come from and how you should live. She begins with the traditional opening words. The phrase that signals this is a story from the ancestors, and everyone recognizes it and responds with the traditional acknowledgement. Then she's into the narrative, her voice falling into the rhythmic cadence of practiced storytelling, and the words carry you away from this fire, this night, into a time before time, when the world was different and the first people were learning how to be human. The story is about a great migration, a time when your ancestors left one land and traveled to another, crossing mountains and rivers, facing hardships and dangers, learning new territories. You've heard this story before, many times, but it's never exactly the same. Each telling includes different details, different emphases, depending on what the storyteller wants to communicate. Tonight, the older woman is focusing on the cooperation required, the way people had to trust each other completely, had to share knowledge and resources without hesitation, because survival depended on the group, never the individual alone. You listen, and the story washes over you like water, familiar and comforting and important. These stories are your history books, your philosophy texts, your instruction manuals for living. They contain practical information encoded in narrative. Lessons about which plants are poisonous, learned through stories of ancestors who died eating them. Lessons about respecting animal life, learned through stories of hunters who wasted meat and suffered consequences. But they're more than just practical. They're the soul of your people, the continuity that stretches from the deepest past into the unknowable future. Your daughter is fighting sleep hard now, her body heavy against you, but her eyes keep opening when the story gets exciting. You tighten your arms around her slightly, creating a secure cocoon, and whisper that it's okay to sleep, that the story will continue without her. But she shakes her head stubbornly. She wants to hear. She wants to be present. And you understand, because you were the same as a child, desperate to be included in adult spaces, hungry for knowledge and experience beyond your years. When the older woman finishes her story, there's a moment of appreciative silence, and then someone else begins to speak. A younger man who rarely tells stories, but who has something to share tonight. He describes an encounter he had several days ago while hunting alone. A moment when he came face to face with a large predator, possibly a bear, and how they regarded each other for several long moments before the bear turned and walked away. He tells it simply, without exaggeration, and you can feel the truth of it, the weight of that encounter. Human and animal acknowledging each other in the wild places. Someone else contributes a shorter story, something funny that happened during childhood, and people laugh, the mood lightening. Laughter is precious. It's a release, a joy, a bonding mechanism that reinforces social connections. Your people laugh often when circumstances allow, finding humor in small mishaps and absurdities, using laughter to diffuse tensions and celebrate good fortune. Tonight, with full stomachs and successful hunting and safety, laughter comes easily. Someone begins to sing a song without words, just melody, and others join in, creating harmony that rises into the dark sky. The music is haunting and beautiful, and you feel it in your chest, feel it connecting you to everyone around this fire. Your daughter has finally surrendered to sleep, her breathing deep and even, and you hold her and sing quietly, adding your voice to the collective sound. This is what being human means, you think? Not just tools and fire and shelter, but this: music and story and laughter and connection. The fire burns lower, and someone adds wood, the flames rising again, casting dancing shadows on faces and rocks and trees at the edge of the light. Beyond the firelight is darkness, complete and unknowable, and you don't think about what might be out there. Instead, you focus on what's here, this circle of light and warmth and community. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new work, new uncertainties. But tonight, right now, you're safe. The conversations continue, quieter now, more intimate. The young mother has finished nursing and is preparing to take her infant to the sleeping area. The older woman is finally setting aside her basket, her day's work complete. The adolescents are being called to sleep by their parents, some going willingly, others reluctantly. Gradually, people are beginning the transition toward rest, toward the vulnerability of sleep that requires trust in those who will keep watch, who will maintain the fire, who will alert everyone if danger approaches. You shift carefully, preparing to carry your daughter to the sleeping area, but you pause for one more moment, looking around the circle at these people you know so intimately: the young father whose child will be born in several moons, the older woman who's taught you so much, the adolescent boy who's becoming a skilled hunter, the young mother whose infant survived against odds. Each person here is essential. Each person contributes. Each person matters. You're bound together by necessity, but also by something deeper, by shared experience and mutual care, and the recognition that human beings are stronger together than apart. You stand, lifting your daughter, her weight, familiar and precious, and you move toward the shelter. Behind you, the fire continues to burn, tended by those who will watch through the early night. The stars are brilliant overhead, countless and eternal, and you pause to look up at them. These same stars your ancestors saw. These same stars your daughter's children will see. The continuity of it, the vast stretch of human time and experience, fills you with something you can't quite name. Not happiness, exactly. Life is too hard for simple happiness. But something like peace, something like belonging, something like knowing your place in the great long story of human survival. Night watch and sleep inside the shelter. The darkness is nearly complete, broken only by the faint glow from the fire outside and the subtle moonlight that filters through the entrance. You move carefully, navigating by memory and touch, feeling your way to the sleeping area where dried grasses are spread thick. Your daughter barely stirs as you lay her down gently, tucking a hide around her small body, making sure she's warm and comfortable. She sighs in her sleep, a sound of complete contentment, and shifts slightly, curling into herself the way children do, instinctively making themselves small and protected. You arrange yourself beside her, close enough to share warmth, but not so close that you'll disturb her sleep. The ground beneath you is hard, despite the grass padding, and you shift until you find a position that doesn't press too sharply against your hip or shoulder. Comfort is relative. You've never known soft beds or pillows in the way future humans will. What matters is warmth, safety, and the presence of your people around you. These things you have, and they're enough. Around you, others are settling into their sleeping places. You hear the soft sounds of bodies moving, of whispered conversations, of a child asking for water and a parent responding quietly. The young mother is trying to settle her infant, who's fussing slightly, and you hear her humming the same melody someone was singing earlier around the fire, using music to soothe. The sound is beautiful in the darkness, a human voice pushing back against the night, claiming this space as safe and home. Outside, you can hear the two people who've volunteered for the first watch. They're sitting by the fire, talking in low voices, and you find their presence comforting. Night watch is serious responsibility. Those who watch must stay alert for any signs of danger. Predators drawn by the smell of meat or the light of fire. Other human groups who might have hostile intentions. Any change in weather or circumstance that might threaten the group's safety. But the watchers also keep the fire alive, feeding it carefully through the dark hours, ensuring that light and warmth persist until dawn. You've done night watch yourself many times, and you remember the particular quality of those hours. The way time feels different in darkness, slower and stranger. The way small sounds become amplified, every crack of a branch potentially significant. The way your eyes play tricks, seeing movement in shadows, imagining threats that aren't there. But also the beauty of it, the stars overhead in their slow wheel across the sky, the calls of night animals going about their business, the peaceful breathing of sleeping people who trust you to keep them safe tonight. You're grateful to sleep through, to let someone else carry that responsibility. Your body is tired from the day's work, from foraging and tool making and all the small, constant tasks of survival. Your muscles ache pleasantly, the ache of use rather than injury, and you feel yourself beginning to drift, consciousness softening at the edges. The boundary between waking and sleeping becoming permeable. But sleep doesn't come immediately. Your mind wanders, reviewing the day, processing experiences and information. You think about the successful hunt, about the deer and the meat it provided, and you feel gratitude, though you're not sure who or what you're grateful to. The deer itself, perhaps, for its life. The land, for supporting the deer. Your people's ancestors, for teaching the skills that made the hunt possible. It's all connected somehow, everything woven together in ways you feel but can't quite articulate. You think about your daughter, sleeping warm and safe beside you, and your mind moves through worry, as it often does at night. Is she strong enough? Am I teaching her everything she needs to know? What if something happens to me before she's grown? Who would care for her? But you push these thoughts away, recognizing them as the useless fears that visit in darkness. Your people will care for her. The older woman would ensure she learned what she needed to learn. The community would absorb her, protect her, teach her. No child survives alone, but no child in your group is truly alone either. From outside, you hear a fox calling, that distinctive sharp bark, and the sound makes you smile slightly. Foxes are clever, opportunistic, always hanging around human camps, hoping for scraps. You've watched them many times, admired their intelligence and adaptability. They're survivors, like you, finding ways to thrive in challenging circumstances. The watchers outside are talking about the fox now, their voices carrying slightly, debating whether it's the same one that's been around for several days or a different individual. The infant has finally settled, the young mother's humming successful, and the shelter grows quieter still. You can hear the breathing of many people now, the various rhythms of sleep, deep and slow. Some people snore, soft, rumbling sounds that you've grown so accustomed to that they're almost comforting, proof of life and presence. Someone is dreaming, making small sounds, their body twitching slightly, and you wonder what they're seeing behind their closed eyes. Do they dream of hunting, of gathering, of loved ones who've died, of places they've traveled? You dream often yourself, vivid, complicated dreams that sometimes feel prophetic or significant, though you're never quite sure what they mean. Dreams are important to your people, discussed and analyzed, sometimes used to make decisions about where to travel or when to hunt. The older woman is particularly skilled at dream interpretation, and people often seek her guidance after especially powerful dreams. You make a mental note to tell her about the dream you had several nights ago, the one about water and birds and something you can't quite remember, but that left you feeling unsettled. Your body is growing heavy now, truly heavy, the last resistance to sleep fading. You're aware of warmth along one side where your daughter sleeps, aware of the cold air on your face, aware of the ground beneath you and the hide above you and the presence of your people all around. Safe, you're safe. Your child is safe. The fire burns. Someone watches. These facts allow you to finally let go, to trust in sleep. As consciousness fades, your hearing becomes the last sense to remain partially alert. This is survival instinct, the part of you that never fully sleeps, that would wake instantly at any wrong sound, any sign of danger. But the sounds around you are all correct. Breathing, the crack of fire, the soft voices of the watchers, wind in trees, normal night sounds, safe sounds. You sleep, but not the way people in the distant future will sleep. Those 8 or 9 hours of uninterrupted unconsciousness in locked houses with artificial lights banishing darkness. Your sleep is lighter, more variable, and you'll likely wake several times during the night, brief periods of semi-consciousness before drifting again. This is natural for your people, this segmented sleep pattern. And during those brief wakings, you'll check on your daughter. Listen to ensure the watchers are still alert. Reassure yourself that everything remains safe in your dreams. You're walking through a landscape of memory and imagination, gathering plants that glow with strange light, following deer that speak with human voices, finding your way through forests that shift and change. The dreams are vivid and real while you're in them. Another world as tangible as the waking one. And part of you knows you're dreaming, while another part is completely immersed in the dream reality. This is the mystery of consciousness, of being human, that you can exist in multiple states, multiple realities, all of them somehow true, outside. The watchers change shifts sometime deep in the night. The first pair waking the second pair, quiet exchange of responsibility. The fire is fed again, flames rising briefly before settling back to steady burning. An owl calls from somewhere nearby, hunting, and something small squeaks and then goes silent. The moon moves across the sky, marking time in its ancient pattern. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent and eternal, and you sleep. As humans have slept for countless generations, trusting in fire and community and the basic resilience of life itself. Tomorrow you'll wake again to cold air and another day of work and uncertainty and small joys. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you rest, your daughter safe beside you, your people around you, the fire burning steady in the darkness. Tonight, that's enough. Tonight, you survive. Closing reflection and connection. Morning comes again, as it always does, as it has done for thousands and thousands of dawns before this one. You wake slowly, awareness returning in layers, and for a moment you're suspended between sleep and waking, between dream and reality, and you're not sure which time you belong to. Then you feel the cold air on your face, smell the smoke from the fire, hear your daughter's breathing beside you, and you're fully present again, fully yourself, a person living 30,000 years before the time you're hearing this story, going about your day, surviving, living, being human. But here's what you need to understand. You listening in your own time, in your own comfortable bed, in your own moment of human existence. The person you've been inhabiting through this story. This woman waking at dawn 30,000 years ago. She's not so different from you. She's not primitive. She's not simple. She's not a crude ancestor, barely capable of thought. She's brilliant. Her mind is as complex as yours, her emotions as deep, her capacity for love and fear and hope and despair exactly equal to your own. She knows things you'll never know, couldn't know, because her knowledge is specific to her world, her time, her challenges. She can read landscapes the way you read books, can identify hundreds of plant species by sight and smell and touch, knows animal behavior with an intimacy you can barely imagine, understands weather patterns and seasonal changes with sophisticated precision. She can create tools from raw materials using nothing but other stones and her own hands and knowledge passed down through generations. She can track animals across bare rock, can find water in seemingly dry landscapes, can navigate by stars and landmarks and subtle signs that you would walk past without noticing. She's also an artist. In caves not far from her territory, her people are creating images that will last tens of thousands of years. Paintings of animals so beautiful and alive that when you see them in museums in your time, you'll feel your breath catch in your throat. She's a musician, creating complex rhythms and melodies, singing harmonies that emerge spontaneously from multiple voices. She's a storyteller, carrying in her memory vast oral libraries of history and wisdom and cultural knowledge. And she loves her daughter with the same fierce protective devotion you love your children or your parents loved you. She grieves when people die, feels loss and sorrow as deeply as any human ever has. She laughs at funny things, feels satisfaction when work goes well, experiences frustration when it doesn't. She has friendships and conflicts, preferences and dislikes, moments of joy and periods of sadness. She's fully human, completely human, human in every way that matters. What separates you from her isn't intelligence or emotional capacity or fundamental humanity. What separates you is accumulated knowledge, technological development, cultural evolution. You stand on the shoulders of thousands of generations, benefiting from the collective learning and innovation of all the humans who came between her time and yours. She's near the beginning of that long chain. You're near the current end of it, though of course it continues forward into times you'll never see, toward people who will look back at you the way you're looking back at her. Think about that for a moment. Let it really settle into your understanding. The phone or computer you're using to listen to this, the electricity powering it, the scientific knowledge that made it possible, the social structures that allow you to have leisure time to listen to bedtime stories about history. All of this rests on foundations built by people like her. She and her people and the thousands of generations that followed them, each one learning and adapting and surviving and passing forward their knowledge and innovations. They created the possibility of you. And here's the beautiful, humbling truth. You're not the culmination of human evolution. You're not the finished product. You're just another step in the ongoing story, just as she was. Thousands of years from now, if humans still exist, if our species continues forward, people will look back at you the way you're looking back at her. They'll find your life quaint, perhaps, limited by the technology and knowledge available to you, and they'll be right, just as you're right about the limitations of her world. But they'll also recognize, if they're wise, that you were fully human, that you loved and feared and hoped and struggled, that you did your best with what you had, just as she did. What connects you across these vast spans of time is deeper than technology or knowledge. What connects you is the basic experience of being human. She woke up worried about her child, and so do you. She found satisfaction in work well done, and so do you. She needed community and connection, and so do you. She looked at stars and felt something vast and mysterious, and so do you. She told stories around fires to make sense of the world and to connect with others. And you're listening to a story right now. At the end of your day, seeking the same things she sought, connection and meaning and the comfort of shared human experience. There's a direct line from her to you. Not metaphorically, literally. Every human alive today descends from people like her, from those who survived ice ages and migrations and diseases and predators and all the countless challenges of early human existence. Her DNA, or DNA very much like hers, is in your cells right now. The fundamental structures of your brain, the chemicals that create your emotions, the basic architecture of your body, all of this was shaped during her time and earlier. You're her descendant, her heir, the future she couldn't imagine but helped create by the simple act of surviving long enough to have children. Who survived long enough to have children? Forward and forward through time until you. When you close your eyes tonight, when you drift toward sleep, remember her. Remember that woman waking at dawn 30,000 years ago, tending fire, gathering food, teaching her daughter, loving her people, being human in a world so different from yours, yet fundamentally the same. Because humans are humans across all times and places. Remember that she looked at the same moon you see, walked under the same stars, felt rain on her skin and sun on her face and wind in her hair. Remember that she laughed and cried and hoped and feared and did her best every single day to survive and protect those she loved. You're part of something vast, something that stretches back through time further than you can imagine and forward into futures you'll never see. You're a link in a chain of human consciousness and experience that began in the distant past and continues through you and beyond you. The woman by the fire 30,000 years ago, she's your ancestor in every meaningful way. Her struggles made your life possible. Her knowledge, passed forward and built upon by thousands of generations, created the foundation of everything you know. And perhaps most important to remember, especially as you drift towards sleep, is that the fundamental human experience hasn't changed. She needed food and shelter and warmth, and so do you. She needed love and connection and meaning, and so do you. She looked for beauty in the world around her, and so do you. She did her best to care for those she loved, and to make sense of existence, and to find moments of joy in a difficult world. And so do you. So sleep now, as she slept, trusting in the basic resilience of human life, in the connections that bind us across time and space, in the ongoing story of human survival and adaptation and love. Sleep knowing that you're part of something larger than yourself, something that began long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. Sleep with gratitude for all the humans who came before you, who struggled and survived and passed forward life and knowledge and possibility. And when you wake tomorrow, remember that you're living the only life you'll ever have, in the only time you'll ever inhabit, and that's precious and important and meaningful. Just as her life was precious and important, make the most of it. Love the people around you. Pay attention to the world. Learn what you can and pass it forward. Be as fully human as she was, as courageously present in your own time as she was in hers. Sweet dreams, traveler across time. Thank you for walking with me into the deep past, for meeting that woman by the fire, for recognizing her humanity and your connection to her. May your sleep be peaceful, your dreams be gentle, and your waking tomorrow be filled with the same quiet determination to survive and thrive that carried her through her days. Rest now, the fire still burns. Someone is watching. You're safe. And the long story of humanity continues forward from her time through yours and beyond. An unbroken chain of consciousness and love and the stubborn human insistence on surviving, on creating, on finding meaning, on being here, alive, present, human. Sleep well. You're part of something beautiful.
And so we come to the end of tonight's story. Thank you truly for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Leave a like if this helped you relax, and share it with anyone who might need a peaceful night's rest. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of Genghis Khan's story stayed with you the most? What would you like to explore in future episodes? Your voice matters here. Now, let go of the day. Let go of everything that doesn't serve you in this moment. The step is quiet, the wind is soft, and sleep is waiting for you, gentle and warm. Good night, dear listener. Rest well, and I'll see you in the next story.